Good afternoon. Welcome to Sports Nothing But Sports with Kent Sterling for Thursday, December 26th, 2019. Brought to you by the great people at Today's Dentistry. Dr. Mike O'Neill, the best dentist that there is. Call him, 317-849-2933. The weather outside, absolutely delightful. 65 degrees, sunny in central Indiana right now. A little bit of cloud cover coming in, but still completely beautiful. I hope you enjoyed it because it's wintertime, baby, and this kind of warm front doesn't pass through very often. Let's talk about sports, nothing but sports. Not a lot going on today. We got a couple of bowl games, but for college basketball, we got to wait till Saturday as Butler takes on Louisiana Monroe. That game, 4 o'clock. Earlier in the day, Purdue is going to host Central Michigan. Sunday night, we've got Indiana hosting Arkansas. Get through that one. Indiana finishes a non-conference slate at 12-1, and that's what a lot of people predicted. Sunday afternoon, it's the Colts and the Jaguars in the regular season finale, which means for the Colts this year, the season finale. Friday night, the Pacers take on the Miami Heat down in Miami, down on South Beach. And if the Pacers can win that, holy crap, will they have had a nice 5-game stretch. The only loss being to Milwaukee up in Milwaukee, but the wins against the Sacramento Kings, which is no big deal. And I'm taking these out of order, sure, but that's okay. They beat the Toronto Raptors in overtime the other night. They beat they would have beaten the Miami Heat as well, and the Los Angeles Lakers. I know they didn't have Anthony Davis, but who gives a damn? A win is a win is a win is a win. The Pacers kind of rolling. We don't have a lot of sports news to talk about, so let's talk about 2019 a little bit. What's the biggest disappointment locally? Well, I've got two of them. One of them is Purdue football. I didn't see this coming with Braum. Braum gets another extension, and all of a sudden, I know Elijah Sindelar got hurt. You know, it wasn't good for the kid from New Albany either, and so Rondale Moore. And so this was a disappointing season for the Boilermakers. They don't make a bowl. They get beat in the bucket game, all those things. And it was also a disappointing season for the Indianapolis Colts, despite the fact that they lose Andrew Luck to retirement 15 days before the regular season opened. You thought that they were still good enough maybe to go to the playoffs, and the first 7 games kind of showed that they were. They were 5-2 after the first 7 games, and then all of a sudden Brissett gets hurt in that game against the Steelers. Adam Vinatieri misses a kick, and Brissett gets hurt. Otherwise, the Colts win that game, and at 6-2, they are damn near locks for the postseason, and they'd be in a position right now, if they had won that game, if they would win against the Jacksonville Jaguars and a couple other things that happened, they would still go to the playoffs. So the season pivoted in that moment. Jacoby Brissett, after the injury, was a different version of Jacoby Brissett before the injury. That's going to have to be taken into consideration by the Brain Trust out on West 56th Street as they try to determine whether Brissett is the long-term answer at quarterback, or if they need to go out and get another guy. Do you spend a first-round draft pick on a potential future franchise quarterback? Do you do that? Do you go out into free agency and go get a short-term answer while you wait for the draft to fall your way? A guy like Phillip Rivers, although Phillip Rivers not going to the playoffs this year with the Los Angeles Chargers either. And from a statistical standpoint, he's been terrible this year. So would Phillip Rivers make you feel any better about the Colts than having Jacoby Brissett at quarterback as he would enter a third year as the starter for the franchise? A lot of questions, which brings us to our, that'll come up in a minute, the biggest questions for 2012. You know Jacoby Brissett's going to be a part of that. The biggest surprise, positively, all right? Biggest disappointments, Colts and Purdue. Biggest surprise, IU football. How do you avoid IU football as an answer for this? I know that their schedule wasn't daunting. All right, they got to play a couple of cupcakes in the Big Ten West, which was very, very helpful. But you know what? You can only play the teams that you're scheduled to, or you can only beat the teams you're scheduled to play. And Indiana did that. The only games that they lost were games to Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, teams that you would have guessed that they would lose to. The only one of those programs that really you could realistically expect to maybe beat once in a while is Michigan State. And Indiana didn't get that done, but they finish 8-4. They're going to the Gator Bowl. They're going to play in it down in Jacksonville on January 2nd. That is a week from today. If Ohio State loses to Clemson in the Fiesta Bowl, Indiana will be the last Big Ten program playing football when they play in the Gator Bowl. How about that? Who saw that coming? You know what? If that doesn't surprise you, if that doesn't shock you out of your socks, I can't help you. Indiana, absolutely terrific. And get this, all right? Remember, Michael Penix was their starting quarterback when the season commenced. And Peyton Ramsey had to come off the bench and save Indiana's bacon, and he absolutely did. So what do you do if you're Tom Allen next year? Michael Penix, Peyton Ramsey, which is going to start? I will guarantee you this. One of those two guys will not be with the program next year. One of those two guys is going to transfer. And there's no way that's not going to happen because neither of those guys will be happy on the bench. That's what happens when you start recruiting at a higher level and guys come to your program and they get beat. They're going to wind up going someplace else because they want to play. And you're only going to have one quarterback. And if Tom Allen tries to split the baby by saying, both these guys are going to play, we're going to find matchups that are favorable for Peyton. We're going to find matchups that are available for Michael. That, I guarantee that's never worked. If you got more than one starting quarterback, you don't have any. That's the old saying, and it's absolutely true. All right, the other big surprise, the Indiana Pacers have been stellar. Really, really, really good. They lost Darren Collison to retirement. Tyreek Evans, who is going to be gone anyway, but he was suspended for 2 years. Bojan Bogdanovic, as a free agent, he signed elsewhere. Thad Young went to Chicago with the Bulls. Corey Joseph, goners. Wes Matthews, goners. And Victor Oladipo isn't back yet. Who figured that this team would be 21-10 after the first 31 games of the season? Who would have thought that that could possibly be the case, that would come to fruition? Well, baby, that is exactly what's happened because Kevin Pritchard went to work. And while those lame asses in Chicago who build the Bulls, misbuild the Bulls, like Gene Hackman in Unforgiven, building his ramshackle hut, Kevin Pritchard has gone about for the third time rebuilding this roster and getting it done right. That's phenomenal. What he has done, no Oladipo, no Bogdanovic, no Evans, no Young, no Collison, no Matthews, no Joseph. And boom, here they are, 21-10, and in the upper echelon of the Eastern Conference. They went out and made the trade for Malcolm Brogdon. They signed some guys as free agents, guys like Jeremy Lamb, guys like T.J. Warren, guys like T.J. McConnell. These guys have been absolutely terrific. Miles Turner and Domas Sabonis playing together. Finally, it looks like that's kind of worked itself out. Miles Turner has played really well the last few games. Domas Sabonis continues to be a triple-double machine. You've had Aaron Holiday, who's been terrific. Justin Holiday, who signed as a free agent. The Indiana Pacers, to me, are the surprise of the NBA. And there are not a lot of people who expected them to be 21-10. They expected them to be more like, after 31 games, probably 15-16, and on the cusp of being a playoff team. But what they become without Oladipo is one of the best teams in the East, who play to their potential because they play basketball the right way. Another kind of positive surprise, Butler basketball. Right? 11-1. They've had a terrific preseason. They've played a tough schedule. They keep getting wins, and they look like a team that is going to finish in the top 3 of the Big East, and the Big East is going to be a bear. That conference from top to bottom, to me, is the best in college basketball. And Butler is among the better teams in it. And for LaVall Jordan to get that done, you lost Paul Jorgensen, and you lost Nate Fowler. Those guys gone. But Kamar Baldwin back, and they've added guys with Bryce Enzi. Bryce Golden has been pretty good. You've gotten Jordan Tucker, who's contributed. This is a really good positionless team that can go out and compete. And when Derek Smith is 100%, he gives LaVall another option as far as good defensive work and a good offensive matchup. With a big, Derek Smith is like 7'3". He's like what Matt Harms is for Purdue. Derek Smits can be for the Bulldogs. They've been a wonderful surprise as well, although I'm never surprised when Butler does well because that is who they are. The biggest dumpster fire, out-of-town dumpster fire, the Chicago Bears. I just don't understand Chicago sports media. I told those guys, I was sending texts to those guys preseason. I was like, you guys are out of your mind. You've got a mediocre quarterback in Trubisky. I don't care if the Bears were 12-4 last year. Mitchell Trubisky is mediocre. And then what you did when he lost Vic Fangio, who became the head coach of the Denver Broncos, you hired Mr. Mediocre, Chuck Pagano, as your new guy, and bringing in Chuck Pagano as a defensive coordinator to lead an attack dog type defense. Absolutely a critical error. Wrong. Their failure this year to make the playoffs, absolutely predictable. So there you go. The Chicago sports media confounds me. You got like 3 guys in that town that know their ass from third base, and the rest of them are just mouthpieces for franchises. Chicago deserves better, and it needs to demand better. The biggest questions for 2020 in Indianapolis, we'll get back to Jacoby Brissett in a moment, but IU hoops. Indiana is 11-1 in the preseason right now in the non-conference portion of the schedule. If they win Sunday against Arkansas, they're 12-1. That means that in the remaining 18 games in the regular season, all against Big Ten opponents, if they go 9-1, they're going to wind up with 21 wins. Or if they go 9-9, they've got 21 wins and 10 losses going into the Big Ten tournament. That'll put them on the bubble in the NCAA tournament. They're going to have a winning record in the Big Ten, and I don't know whether they're capable of getting that done. After watching them, and you know what, if you're in love with 11-1, go ahead and be in love with 11-1. But basketball is not about results. It's about the level of fundamentals being executed, and Indiana is not a fundamentally sound basketball team for 40 minutes. It was against Florida State. They look good. Other than that, they have not looked so good. Early in the season, they look good. And then as they continued to play those cupcakes who came through Bloomington, not so good. I am worried about Indiana going into the Big Ten portion of the schedule, that they're going to have difficulty winning games against coaching that may reveal itself to be superior. Now, does that mean that Archie Miller is going to be in trouble? I don't think so. Because I think that Archie Miller, you got to cycle through completely Tom Crean guys to Archie Miller guys, put those guys on campus. Let's see what those guys can do. Archie's doing a terrific job of recruiting Indiana, and I think that if you recruit Indiana kids at a high level, you go get a kid like Caleb First, you got a chance to be really, really good. And granted, he's just a junior now, but First has got to be like your top priority as an Archie Miller, to go out and get Indiana kids, lock down the state. Hopefully Miller's able to do it, and if he is, I'm willing to wait another year and a half to see exactly what Indiana is going to be with all Archie Miller guys, having cycled through all the recruits that are attributed to Tom Crean and his staff. And then the other question for 2020 is Jacoby Brissett as a starter. Like, look, here's the thing with Jacoby, and we've said it for weeks. You can win with Jacoby, but you will not win because of Jacoby. Jacoby Brissett is not a guy who in the fourth quarter is going to be dynamic and go out and win you a game. Minute and a half left, you got to get a score. Where would Jacoby Brissett rank in all NFL quarterbacks as guys who can go win you a game in the last 90 seconds of a game? Jacoby Brissett, for me, would be in the bottom quarter. All right. Where he is in terms of overall statistics, he's about the 20th best quarterback in the NFL. Is there any way that, as you watch Jacoby Brissett play for the Colts, can he become a top 10 guy in the NFL? I don't see it. I don't see anything about him that makes me think, yep, that's a guy. And this, I'm crapping on the Bears a little bit. But you know what? The Bears and the Colts, I think, are very, very similar right now. They each have a mediocre quarterback and mediocre defensive coordinator. That's what they've got. And as long as that's the case, I think it's really, really hard for either franchise to win consistently. We'll see what Chris Ballard and his staff think. Are they going to be able to distance themselves? This is the critical portion of being a first-time real manager like Ballard is, and a first-time head coach like Reich is. Are they going to be able to take a step back and review the work of all the guys on their roster and say, you know what, this is good, but it's not good enough. We've got to move forward. We've got to recruit over the top. We've got to draft over the top of Brissett. We need to look at a guy like Ryan Kelly. Do we bring Ryan Kelly back as he becomes a free agent? How do we negotiate that? The defense, you know what, Quincy Wilson, and I love the kid, right? And he's still a young guy. He's younger, despite this being his third year, he's younger than rookie Rocky Yassin. So he's a young guy. And you hate to call a young guy like Quincy Wilson a bust, but how would you not at this point? So he was a second rounder. Do you pull the plug on that kid? You look at a guy, and the drafts have been really mostly good, but who are you willing to move forward not with? You know what I mean? Moving forward, who are you willing to say goodbye to and bring in somebody to replace them? Are you willing to say goodbye to Clayton Geathers? You know what I mean? You got a really good player in Khari Willis who got the vast majority of the snaps at safety as the season went on. Do you say goodbye to Clayton Geathers, who you loved to the point where you made him a captain? This is going to be an interesting offseason for the Colts and for Ballard, and really the first offseason where Ballard's got to go out and earn his money. Anybody can clean up another guy's mistakes. Now, Ballard has cleaned up Grigson's mistakes at a really high level. But cleaning up another man's mistakes is not where value is determined. It's cleaning up your own, identifying your mistakes, and then cleaning them up. And that's where Chris Ballard is. Tomorrow morning, Breakfast with Kent, 8 o'clock on Facebook Live, and then at about 8:15 on Periscope Live. A show so nice we do it twice. Brought to you by the great people at Today's Dentistry, 317-849-2933.